you Photoshoppers. Here we go with our Adobe Photoshop CC 2022 certification exam review. We're going to break this video up into categories to make it a little easier to digest and remember. This first category is working in the design industry. These are some things that you may need to know as a designer working along with the client throughout the design process. I suggest you head on over to creativecommons.org. creativecommons.org has all the information you need to know about the Creative Commons licenses. What is Creative Commons? It's just a set of guidelines that we need to follow as designers if we want to use things that someone else created. It's a sharing community where you may be able to use things that somebody else created. However, there are guidelines and specifications that you need to follow. So make sure that you head on over to creativecommons.org to learn all about the different Creative Commons licenses, public domain, and intellectual property. Next, it's important for you to know about an Iteriff Sketch or an Iteriff design. Here I've created a beautiful Iteriff Sketch for tonight's video. It's a series of sketches that you may present to your client throughout the design process. These sketches may change slightly over time as you get feedback from your client. Remember, guys, when you're designing for a client, your personal stylistic preferences do not matter. It's all about the project deliverables and the goals of the client. So make sure you are providing a good Iteriff sketch or Iteriff design to your client throughout the design process. Make sure you know the difference between raster files and vector files. Raster or bitmap files are made of pixels. Vector files are not made of pixels. They are made of smooth lines and shapes based on mathematical formulas. Pixel files are non-scalable and resolution dependent. They could have really large file sizes and they're great for photographs. Where vector files are scalable, they are resolution independent. They have small file sizes and they're good for logos. If we get our zoom tool or our magnifying glass and we zoom in here on the raster file, you'll slowly start to see the pixels. Zooming in simulates making the file larger, so you can see that you do not want to scale a raster file larger because it'll start to look blurry and pixelated. If we move on over here to our vector file and zoom in closer or make our vector files larger, we do not see pixels. We do not see rows and columns of little squares filled with color. We see smooth lines and shapes based on mathematical formulas. That represents making this image larger, what they call making it scalable. That's why vector files are okay to enlarge or make larger. So guys, make sure you know the basic difference between your raster files and your vector files. Our next category is working with files. In this section, we'll learn how to create various new files, working with placed linked files, changing the resolution and resampling low resolution images, changing our preferences, adding metadata and file info, and also viewing our grids and guides and view options. First, let's take a look at creating a new file. To create a new file, simply go up to the File menu and select New. There's also a shortcut on a Mac, Command-N if you're on a Windows-based machine. Of course, that's Control-N. Once you're in the new document dialog box, you can see that they provide you with different categories depending on what you're doing with your artwork. They also provide you with different templates and various files to work with. So here we'll create an HDTV 1080p. Make sure that you name the file exactly how they tell you on the exam. If they give you capital letters, make sure you use capital letters. Here you can change the orientation from portrait mode or vertical mode to landscape mode or horizontal mode. You can also change the size of your resolution. You can decide if your color mode is RGB, grayscale, CMYK, or other. You can change the bit channel from 8 to 6 to 32. You can also change your background contents from a black or a white to a different background color or even transparent. Next, make sure you hit Create to create your new file. Once you have your new document, you're ready to create. Next, we'll take a look at some linked files. If you look here in our layer panel, you can see that we have a layer titled JSF Horizontal Transparent. If we take a closer look at that file, you can see that it has a little link icon in the bottom right hand corner. Our logo found in the bottom left hand corner is our placed or linked file. Placing or linked files happens through the File menu. You simply go to File and go down to Place Linked. Then you select your file and select Place. What that means is, if we go to the original file that was placed and we make a change to that file, let's say we turn the background contents off so that we have a transparent background, and we save that file by hitting Command S on a Mac or Control S on a PC, and then go back to the file that we placed our linked file in, we'll now see that our new placed linked file has updated inside of this file. That's the beauty of placing linked files, is as the original file that was placed is changed and saved and updated, so it updates the file where the file was placed. If we want to check the resolution or the quality of our image, we'll simply go up to the Image menu and go down to Image Size. We can change the resolution here in the resolution box, and if we want to resample or try to increase the quality of the image, we'll add in more pixels and then come to the Resample option box and choose the best option, which is best for whatever you're doing. Here we're going to choose Preserve Details, best for enlargement. You'll see that you can change the width and the height. You can keep your aspect ratio locked or unlocked. You can change the increments that you are viewing your image in. You can see the image size, and now we'll hit OK. If we want to add any metadata or check file info, we'll simply go up to the File menu and down to File Info. Here we can add things like document title. You can add the name of the author or an author title. You can leave a description, rate your file, leave a description for the writer, use keywords and metadata to embed in your file, change the copyright status from unknown to copyrighted or public domain, leave notes for the copyright notice, and even leave a copyright info URL. If we want to change any preferences in Photoshop, we'll simply go up to the Photoshop menu in the top left-hand corner and go down to Preferences. You can either choose the General tab, or if you know specifically what you're looking for, you can go directly to that area in the Preferences tab. In this case, we'll open the General Preferences. Here we can change things like how our files are handled. We can change our automatic save recovery time from 5 to 10, 15, 30 minutes, or an hour. We can turn automatic save recovery off. We can change the way our units and rulers are seen in our file. We can also change the way our guides look and our grids. For example, you can change from a solid line to a dashed line. You can change from inches to pixels, or change the color. Here we'll also make our guides dashed, and then we'll hit OK. To view our changes, we'll go up to the View menu, we'll go down to Show, and then we'll go down to the grid to see our changes. Now if we zoom in a little closer, you can see that our grid is not made of solid lines, it's actually made of dashed lines. Wow, pretty scary image there. Alright, Photoshoppers, moving right along to our third category, and probably the most important category to understand: working with layers. So let's pull our layer panel out here so that we can see it a little better. Guys, remember, with panels, you can collapse them, you can expand them, you can move them, you can dock them inside of other panels, You can dock them between panels, and in this case we're going to pull it out here so we can see all the icons and understand everything going on. First, we'll take a look at the difference between our fill and our opacity. So as we're on this text layer, we'll see that we have some layer styles, some effects. We've got a stroke and we've got a drop shadow, as you can see here. If we lower the opacity on the file, you're going to notice that not only does it lower the opacity on the fill of the text, it also lowers the effects added to the text. And we may not want that. If I go to the fill of the text and lower that, you'll notice that's only changing the fill of the text. What's on the inside? It is not affecting the layer styles added underneath. So you can get some pretty cool looks with your text and your layer styles that way. Next, guys, we'll look at some fill types. So let's come down to the bottom of our layer panel and look at the new item button. This will create a new layer. Guys, in any panel, that square with the plus is going to create a new item for you. In the layer panel, it creates a new layer. In the swatches panel, it creates a new swatch. In the styles panel, it creates a new style. So in any panel, they share the common new item button. So in this case, I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to hit Command A to select all. If you're on a Windows-based machine, you can hit Control All. If you're not comfortable with keyboard shortcuts, guys, you just come up here to the select menu and you can see all the different options you have for select there. But I highly encourage you to use keyboard shortcuts because time is money. So guys, let's look at some of our different fill types. If we come under Edit and choose Fill, like we want to fill a glass with water, we can look and explore at the different contents in our Fill dialog box. We can change the foreground color. In this case, it's going to add this cool looking Florida blue. We can change it to the background color, which in this case, it's going to change it to black. We have black, gray, white, content aware, which we'll explore in a little bit, but in this case, we're going to fill with a pattern. There are lots of options for custom patterns. You can search through the folders and select the ones that you like. So how about, since this is a SoFlo poster in Miami, we'll add a little water pattern. If you want to come over and lower the fill so it blends in with the image a little better, that may give you a little better and more of a subtle look. Alright guys, we'll temporarily disable that layer by toggling the visibility of the layer. It's still there. We can always bring it back. We've just temporarily hidden that layer. We'll create one more new layer. Come back up under Edit and go down to our Fill. In this case, guys, we can fill it with a color. It'll open our color picker where we can choose from colors. Add in hexadecimals if they give us a hexadecimal in the task on the exam. Also remember that if you leave that pane, your cursor turns into a color picker. You can sample different colors in your images. In this case, I want to try to sample this green of the stroke. You'll see that now adds that as a new color. I could add it to the swatches if they want me to in the task on the exam, but in this case, I'm just going to hit OK. Now you see I have a solid fill color. Again, I can lower the fill so it blends in with my image a little bit more and gives it more of a subtle look. So guys, let's add some styles to our text. If we click on the text layer, we can open our styles panel. Where is our styles panel? If we don't see it, remember all panels come from the window menu. Words with a black check are currently open. If they do not have a black check, they are not open. So in this case, we want to select styles. Guys, on the exam, they'll give you the name of the style. Just make sure that you type in and search for the name of the style that they give you. If you're not comfortable with the search feature, you can always look through the folders. But since time is money, I highly suggest that you search for whatever style they give you in the task pane. Just simply click on the style. You'll see that it then adds that style to your text layer. And now you have a pretty cool style. If you want to temporarily disable the effects, just come to the little eye, close the eye. That's called toggling the visibility. It's still there. You can turn it back on, but in this case, we want to temporarily disable it. Next, guys, we'll move on to blending modes. So we'll come up and collapse our styles panel. We'll move over here to a different image of this beautiful happy couple that just got engaged. Where are our blending modes? Right here in our layer panel are our blending modes. Blending modes blend down, so you want to make sure that you're selected on the top layer because blending modes blend down to the layer underneath. Guys, on the exam, you just go and add the blending mode that they tell you. You see here that adding blending modes can add some pretty cool effects to your images. Just remember that blending modes blend down, select the correct layer, and make sure you choose the blending mode that they tell you to choose. One of the coolest things I think Photoshop will do is content aware move and content aware fill. So let's come back over here to our SoFlo poster. Let's move our layer panel back over here so we can see our image a little better. Make sure you are on the correct layer. And in this case, we don't really want this palm tree down here in the bottom right hand corner. It's kind of a distraction. So we're going to select that with the selection tool and choose content aware fill, and Photoshop is going to get rid of it for us. So guys, I like to use my lasso tool from the tools panel. I'm just going to simply make a selection. It does not have to be a perfect selection. As a matter of fact, you want to leave a little bit of content around the object you're trying to remove. Photoshop, it's going to make its best guess on what color pixels to fill in where that item is. So we'll come under Edit, Fill. Under our Contents drop down, we are going to choose Content Aware. Choose OK. And magically Photoshop gets rid of the palm tree. So we'll deselect. And if you didn't know the palm tree was there before, you really would never know that it was there in the first place. If we want to come back over here to our other Miami Beach image, let's zoom in on the beach a little bit. This kind of pole is sort of a distraction. We don't want the pole. So again, make sure you're on the correct layer. Use a selection tool. Leave a little bit of pixel room around the item you're trying to get rid of so Photoshop can recognize the content and be aware of the content. I'm going to go to Edit. There is an option for Content Aware Fill here you could choose, which will open up the Content Aware dialog box. You'll see it where it masks off and tries its best to remove the item. It did a pretty good job. You can hit Apply and then OK, deselect, and you would never know that pole was even there. Let's come back over to our happy couple. We can see that there's some sort of spot or something here in the background that's sort of a distraction. If we zoom in a little closer on that item, we see that it's actually a bird. However, it does look like a mistake in the photograph. So we are going to come up to our selection tools. As long as we are on the correct layer and we make a selection around that item, we can come up to Edit, Content Aware Fill or Fill. Make sure your contents is on Content Aware and hit OK. Magically Photoshop gets rid of the bird. Sorry, bird. We're going to deselect, go to our view options, and have our image fit on screen. Now that bird's not such of a distraction as it was before. Let's come back over to our Josh Shaman MMA Foundation file, and let's talk about the stacking order of our layers. Guys, the layer on the bottom of the panel is furthest away from us. The layer on the top of the panel is closest to us. That is called our stacking order. You can click on a layer and drag and change the stacking order of the layer. We can also organize our layer panel with layer groups. Let's pull our layer panel out so that we can see it a little better. In this case, we want to indicate the layer visibility of our new mill prep layer. We want to create a layer group of all our text, so all of our text layers are nice and organized in that layer. Quickest and easiest way to create a layer group with all your text layers is to select the top layer, hold Shift on your keyboard, and select the bottom text layer. Then come down to the layer group, which looks like the little folder. Remember, guys, you can hover over icons and a balloon will pop up and tell you the name of that icon. I'm then going to create the group. If they tell you to rename the group, make sure you rename the group. If they tell you where in the stacking order they would like the group, make sure that you place the folder in that location. Lastly, let's take a look at some transformation. I'm going to move my layer panel back over here out of the way so that we can see the image a little better. We're going to come up to our big breakfast plate. We're going to make a selection of this plate for our new meal prep program. The best selection tool for this, since the background has a lot of contrast, is my object selection tool. I'm simply going to click and drag a box over the object or over the item, and magically Photoshop is going to select that item for us. I then can hit Control-C on the keyboard to copy, or Command-C if you're on a Mac. Come back over to our Saman Foundation file, and I'm ready to hit Command-V. I'm going to move my plate over here, make it a little bit smaller. I want it to hang off the page a little bit. I also want to change where it is in the stacking order. I also want to lower the fill on the plate so it's not so prominent. We want our logo text to stand out a little bit more. And then also we may want the plate to face the other direction. So in that case, we're going to apply another transformation of Edit, Transform. You can see all the transformations that are available to you. Make sure that you explore, and I want to flip horizontal.